her permanent mulch system in the 1950s, following years of sticking to the rulebook. Her books and newspaper columns did much to popularize her system, and Poverty Hollow Road was choked with curious visitors in the years leading up to her death, at the age of 96 in 1980. Since then, the Stout method has had its ups and downs. Basically organic, she believed that the continual decay of mulch would supply all the nutrients plants needed, though she also sprinkled cottonseed meal as a booster. The mulch technique appealed particularly to gardeners inclined to avoid chemical additives. But as became apparent when used in extreme conditions, exceptionally heavy clay soils, for example, or where drainage was poor, it did not always work well. Some weeds, vetches for example, would come up through the mulch no matter how thickly it was laid. The continued use of certain types of mulch, such as wood chips or sawdust, could literally lock up the soil, making it impossible for plants to extract the necessary elements. Does the method work? The consensus seems to be that it does, given the predictable drawbacks. Dick Raymond, gardening expert and author of The Joy of Gardening, says, "I've done it. It works. But you'll find very few people going the whole way with it now. Everybody's got their own better ideas." Raymond's is a so-called living mulch, wide rows, closely planted. On flower beds, he points out, it looks like the dickens. A friend who tried growing potatoes in straw still remembers the neat little mouse beds he found at harvest time. But to the extent that Stout encouraged people to experiment with the use of mulches, the influence of her books was most likely all to the good. In any case, as far as I am concerned, debate over just how well the Stout method works may be slightly out of place here. She conducts her own pro and con arguments far better than I could, generously giving space to her opponents and then shooting them out of the water with a slam-bang efficiency that is fun to read no matter what you believe. She is also very sound on asparagus. While I have no particular interest in building hay mulch mountains in my vegetable patch, even assuming I could get the hay, which now seems to only come in gigantic cylinders, I'll go all the way with her theory that there's no need to plant asparagus in a trench. The principle is the same, after all. Less work, more vegetables. Charles Eliot, London, 1998. Chapter 1. God Invented Mulching. Some years ago, I wrote a short article which appeared in a national magazine telling about how I had been successfully growing flowers and vegetables for quite a long time with almost no labor but planting and picking. I wasn't swamped with fan mail, but I did get enough excited letters from gardeners all over the United States to make me feel that I had an obligation to the millions of others who hadn't read the article. Also to those who may have read it but needed a worthwhile push to get them started. I've always liked that prayer which asks for the courage to change those things which we can, for the serenity to accept the ones we cannot change, and for the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Well, here was a situation I could at least try to change. I could write a book about this easy way of gardening. I finished the first chapter and sent it to my sister to read and comment on. She returned it saying in effect, "You told the whole story in a 1,500-word article. How do you expect to fill a book?" I had foreseen that difficulty, had been wondering how on earth I could, but the publisher who was interested in the project suggested that I tell about the hard work and the struggle and the various crop failures I had endured during the 14 years of growing things the old-fashioned way, showing the contrast between it and the new method. Following this advice, I had no trouble filling a book which we called How to Have a Green Thumb Without an Aching Back, which was published by Exposition Press. And being an incurable optimist, I had visions of cluttering up the lives of all gardeners with leisure. One day my publisher said to me, "Say, stop daydreaming. I may sell a few million copies for you, but you aren't going to revolutionize gardening." Well, I wonder. That was several years ago, and he is still plugging away on the first million, but garden magazines and farm papers are spreading.